Hey, this is Rick Kaselj from exercisesforinjuries.com. Today I have another interview for you, and it's with Maureen Garry. So our guest today, Maureen Garry, is a fitness and nutrition expert from Hawaii. These days she focuses on women over 40, but has helped men and women of all ages lose fat and inches. She's recently created a program called the Fat Belly Breakthrough that brings the latest in nutrition and exercise research together with proven ways to change unwanted behaviors. Maureen has overcome many obstacles along the way to being fit and healthy herself, which fuels her desire to help others. Her toughest battle was figuring out why she had what doctors called chronic fatigue syndrome, and how after 14 years of steady decline, she fought her way back to health. Today, Maureen will show you how to use these same tools to take restorative health, to take your health back. Now, Maureen, please, add anything more to, the introduction to yourself, to the readers, listeners, and viewers.
Oh, that was a great introduction. Thank you, Rick. It's good to be here, and it's really good to talk to you again.
Yes. We ran into each other a number of times all over the place, in California and Vegas, and chatted. So it's nice to actually kind of do a video, an interview with you, because we've had lots of discussions at our meetings, during the lunch breaks and during the lunch break and dinner breaks. So maybe you can expand on your story and how that obstacle of the label that the doctor gave you of chronic fatigue syndrome, and what you did in order to kind of overcome that label.
Yeah. So my story actually starts way back. Way back as a kid. I was actually a chubby kid, and I grew up, just knowing how people treat chubby kids. It's pretty bad. So in high school, I said, no more. I'm done. I'm going to lose this weight. And I did. I got pretty extreme. I started eating very little, just cut the calories way down. That's all we knew how to do back then, was like cut calories. And then I started running, and I burned calories and cut them. And I ended up losing 30 pounds in a summer, which was totally awesome. Changed my social life completely, 180 degrees. But, unfortunately, I didn't do it very smart, because I became anemic, very tired. My hair was falling out, just clumps. It was a bad way to lose weight, and I wasn't healthy. So I decided in college I would learn how to be healthy, and that's why I got an athletic training degree, because that is what you do with athletes. They're injured, you bring them back to optimal health and optimal performance. So that was exercise and diet. I became super healthy myself. I worked out all the time. I ate a ton of good food. I felt awesome, strong, really lean, thinking this is how it's going to be forever, right? Me too. In our 20s. Silly us. But what happened was, then over the years, I changed careers. I got into clinical research, which was great. I loved it. But even before that, I was working at Stanford's Heart Disease Prevention Program, and I was teaching the stuff that I learned in school, which is the long slow cardio and the low-fat diet, which we know has not gotten us into a very good position now, as our country is in this horrible obesity crisis. But anyway, so that's where I left the fitness world and got into device research. That was my knowledge. Well, I got more and more sick over the years, and I couldn't figure out why, because here I was doing everything right, quote unquote, but I just got worse and worse fatigue, and ended up getting diagnosed with this thing, chronic fatigue, and having to take time off of work, put on disability from work. And I was motivated, man. I just wanted to figure this out. It was like, I'm not going to live my life this way. This is horrible. So I turned every stone. I hung out in the Stanford Medical Library, trying to figure this out. I bought journals, I bought newsletters, I bought books. You know, I went to doctor after doctor. I had exploratory surgery. I did everything I could. And finally, I figured, you know what? No one's ever tested me for parasites. So I found the best doctor in the area I could. I drove like 200 miles to see her. She sent this lab test off to some other state, and, you know, that only does parasite tests, and lo and behold, there was my problem. So that journey taught me that you need to be very, very motivated to finally, if you have a big obstacle, you got to know your why. Mine was very clear to me. You know, that energy is awful. I didn't want to live with that. I would do anything to get back to health again, how I used to feel. And I think that, you know, is what I try to get women to do with how they're going to change, you know, whether it's usually that we start with the weight. That's where I'm doing right now. Start with the weight. How can we change? What's going to motivate you? What's your big why? And how can we get at that and give you the right tools? Because once you find the why and the what you're aiming at, which you got to know what you're aiming at, right? Then you implement all the tools that are proven to work. And these are the things now that I've learned how to use, you know, the new tools, not the old style, the long, slow, boring cardio, right? And the low-fat diet. It's the new stuff. So that's a very long way of saying I've been through a lot. I've done it twice now. I've lost weight again in the past few years with the new stuff. And I just want to share it with women. I want to share it with women my age who have this old information and actually have other issues, you know, hormonal things that happen in our 40s and 50s. I think we're a special age group that it isn't very well served at this point. You know, there are a lot of male trainers, there are a lot of younger female trainers, and this age group that I'm talking about doesn't have a whole lot of emphasis put on us. So this is where I'm trying to get women to be more educated and understand how to deal with their hormones at this time.
Awesome. Now, just expanding a little bit, like, how did you know that it potentially could be parasites that were leading to your chronic fatigue syndrome?
It was reading everything. I mean, I read so much, and I had this one newsletter that kind of tipped me off to that. I mean, I just read everything, and this parasites came up a couple times. Once in a book, and I thought, nah. And then it came up in this newsletter again, and I thought, maybe. And then it came up another time. I thought, you know what? We better check this out. And then that's what I actually contacted the person who wrote the article and said, you know, who do you recommend? This is where I live. I'm in Northern California. And she took me out to the Central Valley, and I had to go, and that's how I found it. It was sort of like digging and digging and digging, and just going under every rock, because you have to. No one cared about it as much as I did.
And that ends up bringing a big point. It's come up a lot when it comes to these interviews that, I can't remember who said it, but the number one person that cares most about your health is you, and that you need to kind of take bold action when it relates to your health. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have. Yeah. Who knows what would have happened?
Yeah. And then what was the treatment that in a basic way? What was the treatment for the parasite issue?
Yeah, the basic treatment was 3 different drugs and cycled through two times. So it took me several months. I can't remember exactly how long it took, but anyway, I remember it was 3 drugs, and I cycled through it 2 times. And then after that, I went to a special doctor who was a rebuilding doctor, and was all through nutrition and supplements and different modalities, acupuncture, and we did all kinds of things to build me up again, because I was just so depleted. And that actually took a really long time, really long. I was kind of at 6 months, I was saying, I'm not really sure we got it, because I don't really feel good. But, you know, really soon after that, I started feeling really good. And here, check this out. As soon as I started feeling good, I got pregnant. My body said, all right, you're good now.
Wow.
No, it was amazing. It's amazing. Your body's so hot.
Now, you overcome that chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, when it comes to your healthy lifestyle or fat loss journey, there's probably been certain times where there's been ups and downs. What do you think the biggest thing you've learned from all those, ups and downs, and how it can end up helping other women?
Well, I think probably the unifying thing is the knowing the why, and then also having the right tools. Because I had weight issues. I didn't have the right tools. My tools I was using were not getting me healthy. They were losing fat, but they weren't getting me healthy. Now when I've learned the newer tools, the 2015 current science, then you can apply the right tools and come out with the best outcome. So that's what I found is that you first have to even identify it. Like, we didn't know that the parasites were the issue, right? So we identified it, and then we found the right tools, which were the drugs and the rehabilitative nutrition and all the other things. So that's what I found is that, once you identify your target, get the why, identify your target, and then use the proper things, whatever they are. Get your accountability, get your deadline, get all your environment in place. There are several things that are just the standard, but, we have to work through them. We have to work through them methodically and make sure they're all in place to get the best results.
Awesome. And then there's been other tough times in your life, and how have you kind of overcome those tough times? Kind of explaining, what your goals were at that time, what you were shooting for, and what were some of the tools that you used to overcome those tough times and obstacles.
Well, I think that, having, it's interesting because you're an injury guy.
I've been called worse.
Well, I relate to you because tough times are like back pain and trying to exercise with back pain. And this was yet another thing where I did what I thought everything was right. And I ended up having to go to the right specialist that I found out through, working the network. The one person who had the weird thing that seemed to be working for back pain. And when I went to her, she's a physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy, and she said, not everyone does this, but I found it works really well. And I'm like, well, I'm game, let's do it. And it ended up working, which, that it just shows you again, you have to be motivated and search out the unusual things sometimes, to get over these challenges. Because this works everywhere.
And then, how did you discover, the different types of kind of tricks and strategies and tools when it comes to, losing weight in your 50s?
Yeah, that was kind of weird because ETR, Early to Rise, I think you know about this group, they had, a contest where they did, and it was, healthy, wealthy, wise, and I actually won one of the categories in the wisdom category, and I won money. It's like, oh, wow, I got, I improved my life and I got paid for it. This is good. and then turbulence training had the same kind of thing, which was weight loss. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I wasn't totally convinced because in my mind, what I had to do was go back to this long exercise and this really low, calorie diet and the stuff that I did a long time ago. So when I learned what the new stuff was, by being in that contest, I was into the mix again. I was into the current fitness talk. And I discovered the new stuff, and that's what got me back into it. That's why I'm in it now, as opposed to clinical research, is because I don't think women know this stuff. I think this is so new that it hasn't made it out to the mainstream, and the way I came upon it was trying to just win a contest, to win some money and to get into this group for, years and years and get this membership. So it was kind of, I wasn't even looking for it, I wasn't even looking for new information, and I found it, and now I'm just charged up about it.
Awesome. And, I think that comment of, losing weight in your 50s, a lot of people wouldn't think about that. I know, when you're younger, when you're in your teens or your 20s, you kind of look at your parents or your grandparents like, you guys don't care. You guys don't need to worry about your weight. You're old. But
Yeah.
I think everyone, with time and with age, you end up facing different challenges. I know in my 40s, what I can't do what I did in my 20s. I can't live that way. I mean, if I want to live that way, my body just gets completely thrashed. So I always need to kind of be changing and improving things, as I end up aging. And even with people that are in their 50s, 60s, and I know I have listeners and readers in their 70s. I just got an email from a reader that was saying that, since when he hit 70, he's had a difficult time working out. Like, who would recommend a 70-year-old to be working out? But it's awesome that they're working out in their 70s, because there ends up being tons of benefits, and you're different with every decade. Your strategy needs to change, your tools need to change, and then also the science ends up changing with time. Like what we knew, 10 years ago or 20 years ago is totally different compared to what we know now.
That's why science is so great. It's great for wimps, because you can always say, well, I reserve the right to change my mind based on the science. You can never be wrong. You can just be current.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and sometimes, especially when you look at some of the science, it's like 40 years ago, you're like, oh, this is atrocious. This is bad. Yeah. These are recommendations. And and it seems like things go through cycles, especially with the health and especially with nutrition. And even like some of the recommendations that were made in the 80s, you look now and you're like, oh, those are just really bad nutritional recommendations compared to what we know now.
Yeah.
Now, I want people to, listen to this interview or watch this interview and really come up and leave with some solid, health and fitness tips. So what are some of your best nutrition and exercise tips that people can leave this interview with?
Super simple. First thing you want to start with is increase your protein intake. Because I find across the board, unless people are really savvy, they don't eat enough protein for weight loss. There's a protein level you eat for maintenance, and then there's an optimal protein level for weight loss, and it's a lot higher. And the reason is that protein is so satisfying, you'll end up spontaneously eating a lot fewer calories just because you have a higher protein content. So in this one study, people ate a high protein diet, and they spontaneously ate 441 calories on average less per day, just on their own. They were fully satisfied. Nobody tried to control anything. They didn't change anything. So it's got this incredible satiety value, and that's why you bump it up. I tell people go 20 grams at least 4 times a day. That's kind of hard to do. I mean, I end up recommending protein powders because they're so convenient. You can take them for snacks. You can run out the door and go to work with your protein powder and just shake it up at break. So, high protein. And I also tell people vegetables at every meal, including breakfast, which, they say, I don't want broccoli for breakfast.
Yeah, I'm just imagining broccoli in my oatmeal.
You can have it on the side.